So when this topic came to me, or I say topic, but it's more of a question, to be honest. When this question came to me, it started in the place of, why do books find me? Which then eventually changed to, why do stories find me? And it's something I've just been thinking about lately. I just keep thinking, books keep appearing around me. I mean, sometimes it's something that I'm actively searching for, like heading into a bookshop and finding a book. And sometimes it's like I walk into work and one of my bosses tells me that there are books that don't have a home and asks me if I want to adopt them. So, I never know how I'm going to find a book, or maybe it's through a conversation. I have a conversation with someone and they end up talking about a book, but not in the form of recommending it to me. But then I hear, oh, a book. Maybe I need to research this book, have a look into this book. Maybe I need to find this book and add it to my to read later pile. Who knows? But it wasn't until like I kind of zoomed out and I thought, I don't actually know where it started with the books, I think stories are the things that keep finding me. That's what I mean. It's like, I was thinking, why do books keep finding me? But it's not the books. The books, as I've constantly said in previous videos, the books are just this physical object. But the stories are what? In my head, I just thought about it because I was about to say books, and the stories are what are captured within the books. And then I started thinking about like Pokemon. Like books are like Pokemon. So like, imagine you tell this story and then someone's just like, oh, that's a great story. I got a Pokeball for it, throws the Pokeball, captures the story. And then, with the Pokeball, it bounces for a bit. It rolls. You're like, oh no. Is this Pokeball going to capture the story? And it's shaking. The red light is highlighting and it's shaking. And then it stops. And then it forms into an actual book. That would be absolutely sick. What could we call those people? Story capturers? What about story trainers? Oh, kind of like Pokemon trainers, story trainers? Yes, story trainers out there capturing stories with Pokeballs. Does it make sense? Does it have to make sense? Who knows? But what we do know is, maybe you know a story trainer. They're out there playing Pokemon Go. Really, they're out there capturing stories. Those adventures, those adventures are worth something. But anyway, maybe the fact that I'm asking the question, why do stories find me? Maybe it's because I'm just kind of touching the surface of, what is it, like being attuned to the stories that are all around me. So like, I'm often known as like the guy with the stories. I think one of my best mates, I remember when, after I graduated uni and I went down to, he was at drama school, and I went down to spend some time with him sometimes, and then I would just have all these stories that I would tell him, and then he would just be like, oh, Corey, tell that story about, and and I would just remember just telling these stories, crazy stories about things that had happened to me in my life. It wasn't like a random story. It was like things that had happened to me, crazy adventures that I would have in my uni days. Maybe I'll tell these stories one day. Maybe I won't. Maybe you'll have to meet me. Maybe you'll have to know me and know those stories. But anyway, I'll tell these stories, and yeah, I just remember having all this intricate details, remembering all these parts, and just making the story kind of. There's a way to tell a story in the sense of when you tell it back, and when you tell back a story, especially something that's happened to you, you maybe sometimes you just remember the best parts, but sometimes in my stories I would remember the best parts and the bad parts, because like kind of the bad parts would kind of weigh out the good parts, and it would add to the humor of the story of what happened. But yeah, and I often thought about like different perspectives and potentially how other people or the other person may have thought about this situation. Even when I've been in like some weird situations, I'm closing my eyes right now and I'm thinking about those stories. I can't, I'm not going to repeat them. But it makes me think about a question like, why do some moments stick with you while other moments disappear? Like, those stories that I used to tell my friends, some of them I still remember. I think that if my friend said to me one of the moments from the story, it would be like, okay, cool. I remember what story you're talking about. And then I would relive that whole moment again and be able to tell it. But like off the top of my head, I can only remember just just one story. But yeah, it's just funny. I often think about like, it's interesting that I can remember certain moments of when I was a kid, but I can't remember everything. But there's certain people that I speak to where they can tell you full on moments about what happened to them when they were a kid. And it just makes me think, wow, like either you have a really good memory or that moment to you really stuck out as something, oh, I need to remember this. For whatever reason, their brain decided to stick on or fixate onto that moment for it to be a moment to remember, and not just be a moment to remember, it's a story that they retell. Like I can, the earliest moment that I think I can remember, and I can remember, literally I can vividly see this moment of me watching TV, and I think I was watching some, I think it may have been like a Denzel movie. I was in this old house that me, my mum, my brother, and my dad used to live in. And I can even like, when I close my eyes, I can remember, I can see like the layout of what the house looked like. It's crazy. And I haven't actually thought about this memory in a very long time. But I remember saying, like, watching the TV, watching whoever was acting on TV, and I remember saying, I could do that. And I don't know why that memory stuck out to me, but in a way I do, because that memory or that moment to me was kind of the catalyst to starting me embarking on creativity, on finding acting and dance and everything that led on to that afterwards. But that moment of me saying, yeah, I can do that, or I want to do that, or no, I remember saying I could do that. I didn't know if I could do it, but I remember watching the TV. Yeah, I could do that. I don't know if I was thinking about it now. I'm having this whole humble moment of like, oh, I was thinking about the acting, but maybe I was thinking about that. I was talking about like a moment in that film. Like, I don't know, I can't think of the film that I was watching to tell you like what was happening in the scene, but maybe I might have been saying, I can do that, as in I could do that stunt or that thing that the actor was doing, as opposed to being an actor. But hey, that moment stuck for me, and the story I told myself about it was that is that was the catalyst. But now thinking about it now, what if it was like some actor doing some scene where they were jumping out of a plane, and I was like, shit, I could do that. I could jump out of a plane. But now, in hindsight, adult Corey is here like, I'm not about jumping out of a plane. What if the parachute doesn't pull? Like, what if I'm pulling the parachute and it doesn't come out? Like, I'm not about it. I'm also not about like bungee jumping. Like, I, what if like I jump and they forgot to tie the rope and I just fall? Like, I can't be doing any of that. Only thing I might do is like maybe a hot air balloon or something like that, because you can be in control of that, or there could be someone qualified to be in control of that. But all these dangerous sports, I don't know, unless there's 100% foolproof rules or plans set in place. I don't know if I can put my life on that. But stories stories were there before books, and that's not just something I'm saying, but something that's from history. Stories are stories in this context, being before the books, is in context to me as opposed to history. Oh, that right. But I was thinking, actually, this kind of led from part of a conversation I was having this evening with one of my friends, and also part from me coming up and conceptualizing this idea or this question to explore, that the stories coming before the books is kind of an interesting thing for me, because I hadn't really thought about it, but I felt like if all the things I do, I'm an actor, I dance, I perform, I make music, I'm a filmmaker, I do poetry, I write, and I started thinking properly about this, and I was like, hang on, although these are all these creative things that I do, there's a few more I haven't mentioned for this example, but these creative things that I do, but like, I thought it was just by chance, but it's not. It's like, I enjoy storytelling, and the forms that that I do creatively are kind of like the way that they're forms of storytelling, sorry. Dance is a form of storytelling. Performing drama, acting is a form of storytelling. Filming, videography, to even, like my friend was talking about taking a picture. Like, I'm a photographer as well, but I hadn't thought about it in that concept, and when the way how he put it, he was like, even if you were taking a picture of, like, what did he say? I think he may have said a lamppost. You have to think about the angle that you're gonna take on this picture. You have to think about the lighting. You have to think about all these elements, but in that same moment, you're telling yourself a story so that you can picture this object in that light, in that frame. It is so small. It's so it's interesting in the fact of it happens so fast, in the fact of you feel like you're just doing this. All right, cool. I need to take a picture of this. What have I got in my shots? This book. So what am I going to do? How am I going to take a picture of it? How am I going to look at it? What story am I trying to tell? And that's what you think about it. Like when you're trying to sell something to someone, adverts are perfect examples. A lot of the time, even when it doesn't feel like it makes sense, I'm sure there's an underlying story that they're trying to tell. And a lot of the time it feels kind of nonsensical to say that, because when you look at some adverts, you watch them, you're like, hang on, what on earth was that about? Like, and furthermore, like, what has this got to do in connection with the item that you're trying to sell me? Like, what? But at the same time, there must have been an a beginning, middle, and end when they were figuring out how they were going to present this to you. The story that this product was trying to tell, although it may seem sometimes random, I'm sure there is some kind of connection to the product, even though it's hard to tell sometimes. It's really, I'm just thinking about like, maybe, like I was thinking about a random advert, and like I started thinking about, what's that? Dun, 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 I can feel it calling in the air tonight. Hold on. And then it was an advert for Cadbury's. Do you remember that advert? And whoever was playing the drums, he was dressed as a monkey, I'm pretty sure. Am I remembering that right? Someone please tell me or confirm. But I used to look at that advert and I was like, why is there, what is going on here? But maybe it was to do with like that song, and I don't quote me on the lyrics. I don't know. I'm going to have to watch it back to figure out what I was saying. I can feel it calling in the air tonight. Is that the right lyrics? Hold on. Maybe it was like something to do with like, I don't even know. If you know, like, let me know. I would really love to know what the story of that advert is. As you can tell, it's really been playing on my mind for like, I don't know how long it's been, how long ago that was on the TV, like however long that's been, like 10, 20, no, it can't be 20. It could be, I don't know. Time is, time is a construct. But yeah, I feel like I've been working in storytelling forms that maybe I didn't choose storytelling, but maybe it's much more of a thing that I kept choosing things that let me tell stories. And I'm sure this is obviously a thing I've done unconsciously. I've wanted to be an actor, so I went into drama. But that, in a sense, is telling multiple stories. And then I danced. Dance is a fantastic form of telling a story through movement. Poetry, writing. It's not something I was conscious of doing, but through this exploration, I've become more conscious of it. Unknowingly, the connection is crazily unsound, you know? And that's when, I guess, books started becoming a catalyst for me. Like, for example, if I think back to why stories matter, like I talked about Said the name wrong. Akeem Balogun's fantastic collection, The Storm. If you haven't bought it yet or checked it out, I recommend checking it out. It's like, I don't know if I talked about it in that video, but it's basically, I probably did. I probably did, but I'll talk about it again. It's about a storm, and each story is connected to the storm, but each story, I'm not. It's so loosely written with the endings that you're not sure if they're all connected on one day or this is all happening in different times, but it's all connected to a storm. It's quite beautiful and very poetic, I would say, but I recommend checking it out. But like I said, when I read The Storm and I saw this collection of short stories, I knew of short stories and I knew of collections of short stories, but I had never read one. So when I read it, and especially this has been from someone I knew and someone someone that I knew, is more to do with someone that I knew. And then I saw it, I was like, this is amazing. It changed my perspective of how I saw that I could tell stories. I always looked at it like, all right, cool. If I want to tell a story, I need to write a book. But when I thought of that book, it was just straight prose. I didn't think, hang on, I could write a collection of short stories. Maybe I don't have enough for a full book, but I have enough for 5 or 6 short stories. I could put that into a collection. Maybe I have an idea for one short story. Maybe it's, I don't know, 15 pages and I put it in the form of a pamphlet. Maybe I add some art to it. Maybe there's other layers to it. Maybe there's other pieces, you know what I mean? Limited runs. I hadn't thought about any of this. I had just thought, I want to write a book one day. It has to be this book. It has to be just straight. But yeah, it's crazy how stories come into your life and then how they become more meaningful to you once you make the connections. I think that's so beautiful, personally. And then I think about my favorite bookshop. I gotta say it, Brunswick Bookshop. There are no favorites among bookshops. I can't be making favorites, but like also favorite bookshop right now. I feel bad saying right now because I have to say right now, what if I find another bookshop that's even more amazing? I can't, and then I'll be like, oh, okay, cool, right. What I'll do this, you can have multiple favorites, right? That's a thing. Yeah, so it'll be a list of favorites. Brunswick is number 1 right now. But you know, this, like I said, it could be a leaderboard of favorite bookshops. Then I may have to bump the list around a bit. I'm not saying I want to, but I'm saying it might have to come to that. But anyway, back to Brunswick and the story dealers. The way recommendations come, sometimes they are in the form of, oh, this book is 5 out of 10, or this book is 10 out of 10, or this book is 2 out of 10. But those aren't the recommendations I really vibe with. The ones I prefer are when someone just tells you a story about how this book connected to them, tells you how this book changed their way of thinking. I love the fact that when I went into Brunswick Bookshop and I was looking for a book by Ursula Gwynn, like the first thing the deputy manager said to me was, "What mood are you feeling?" I was like, hang on, that's an interesting question to ask. What mood? I mean, I don't know half the time. Book-wise, I don't know. So I was just like, I don't know, surprise me. I'm ready for I'm excited for any story you throw at me. And then he ended up giving me, can I remember the title of this book? Nope, I can't remember the title of it, but I can remember the yin and yang on the front cover, and one side was spacey and the other side was like snowy, and it had like two like people that had like snow gear on. One guy was dragging a pack, the other person was walking beside them. That's all I do remember of the cover. But the name of the book, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't. But I'm sure I'll write it up here or something like that. So then you can find it as well. But the fact that he asked me about the mood is an interesting question. What if I had said, I don't know, I'm feeling happy? Would I have got a different book compared to the fact of me saying, surprise me? If I was saying, oh, I don't know, I've had a bit of a long draining day, would he have returned and given me a completely different book? This is really interesting, and I want to try it. What book would I get from a different mood? It's intriguing, but it makes the form of recommendation or the form of finding a book or finding a story more interesting, instead of, oh yeah, I think this book is amazing. That too is a recommendation. But then I need to probe your brain and find out more. Why is it amazing? Or why is it amazing to you? And then it comes to this book, right? This book here is high philosophy. I think that's what it says. It's by Nick Hornby. And I ended up buying this book because, well, so I was in the bookshop. I was in Brunswick, and I was looking at another book. I was reading the blurb of this other book, and then the manager of the of Brunswick was putting some books away, and this book caught my eye in, I guess, the corner of my eye. I saw it. I was like, oh, what's that book? And just before she put it on the shelf, I was like, hang on, can I see that book? And she was like, oh, do you know it? And I said, no. No, I don't know this book. She was like, oh. And I was just like, oh, it just looked interesting. And she was like, oh, okay. She handed it over. I had a look at the cover. Tell the truth, I just saw the front where it said Guardian, an instant classic. I was like, all right, cool. And then the manager came back over and she was like, they made a film about this back in the 90s. And I was like, oh, sold. This book is coming home with me. But like I said, I didn't even read the blurb. I just saw it's kind of cool. It looks kind of cool on the front.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
What? I mean, I said it's kind of cool. I don't think I said the the name of the machine, but what can you say? They love to make the appearance. So yeah, what was I saying? I got this random book. I was sold by the cover and the fact that it was made into a film back in the 90s. I didn't read the blurb, and then I bought it. Let's read the blurb together. Do you know your desert island all-time top 5 most memorable split-ups. Rob does. He keeps a list, in fact, but Laura isn't on it, even though she just becomes his latest... Wait, I'm reading this wrong. I did read this. I did read the blurb. But anyway, it goes like this. Let's start from the top again. Do you know your desert island all-time top 5 most memorable split-ups? Rob does. He keeps a list, in fact, but Laura isn't on it, even though she's just become his latest ex. He's got his life back, you see. He can do what he wants, when he wants, like listen to whatever music he likes, look up the girls that are on his list, and generally behave as if Laura never mattered. But Rob finds he can't move on. He's stuck in a really deep groove, and it's called Laura. Soon, he's asking himself some big questions about love, about life, and about why we choose to share our lives with the people we do. Review from The Independent says, leaves you believing not only in the redemptive power of music, but above all, the redemptive power of love. Review from the Financial Times says, a triumphant first novel, true to life and moving. And yeah, I think it was more that line, the last line on this blurb, that probably sold it to me, to tell a lie. I did pick it up randomly originally, but now I'm reading back the blurb. It was the idea that it was talking about music and love, and I love music, and love is love, you know. It's a great emotion. And yeah, just the fact of this line of, he was asking himself some big questions about love and life and about why we choose to share our lives with the people we do. And that is an interesting question. Not even just in a romantic sense, but even just with the company you keep, with the friends you have. Like, there's a reason why you choose to keep or share, not even keep, but you choose to share your life. And share your life doesn't have to mean romantically. I mean, share your life as in tell stories of what's happening in your life to other people that care to listen. And you don't tell everyone the same stories. Sometimes you do. There's some group of people you might just tell the same stories because you want to keep them up to date with all the same stories so everyone's up to date. But there's some people that know certain stories, but they don't know all the stories. And sometimes there's a reason why you share why, and sometimes there's not. And then there was also the fact that I love the fact that I was reading a blurb from another book and curiosity actively tapped me on the shoulder and was just like, hey, hang on. I know you're reading this book, but look at that cover. Why don't we check out that book? It's sort of a completely different book from the corner of my eye, and I couldn't even tell you what, like I said, I couldn't tell you what the book was that I was reading the blurb of before I saw High Felicity? I'm going to look this up in post. And the text will be up here, up there. Yeah. Oh wait, where am I on my? And then there's also like when I went down to Camden Town bookshop and I was looking around the shelves and I ended up picking up the Starless Sea. And when I read the back of the cover and I read that line, we are all just stardust and stories, I was sold. I was like, yeah. Literally, when I finish the book that I'm currently reading, Cuddy, I will be reading that, The Starless Sea. I need to know. I need to know about these stardust and the stories, and I need to know about the book guardians, and I need to know. But speaking of Cuddy, actually, yeah, no. Speaking of Cuddy, because I do have it here, I I actually I found this story completely randomly in the bookshop, picked it up, saw the cover, and read a few of the blurb. I read the front, and I was sold. Like like I say a lot of the time. But not only that, I just want to say since I've been reading this book, I find that it's a story. It has. It's a book that contains 3 stories, and I believe I'm on. Sorry, 4 stories. 5 stories. Does the prologue count? Yeah, I think it does. 6 stories. There's 6 stories contained inside this one book, and I'm on. If there's now 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's called book 3, but if you include the prologue, it's and the interlude, it's book 5. And each story, it's interesting that the way how he plays with the different forms of telling stories through the prose, through the plays, through the diaries. And coming to think about it, maybe this was the book or the story, the catalyst that kind of led me to think about why do stories find me? Because this is like story inception, this book here, stories within stories within stories, literally, with like the way how it's told in different forms, the way how each story is kind of layering onto the other story, and it's all connected. And from looking at the, what is it called, the content page, it tells you that it tells you each year that it's covering through the history. And the last story or the last book in Cuddy, it says that it starts from 2019, which tells me that it's. Oh, have I got a label in here that's annoying me? I don't even think this one has a label. Savage. What am I feeling? Anyway. Yeah, it tells me that these stories are connected over time, which kind of adds to the fact of how stories are orally told or have been orally told. And I had a point, but it's gone. So I'm just going to move on. Don't you hate when that happens? You have something in your head and you're on a whole chain, and then you get to the end of the chain and you're like, hang on, how did this chain finish? How do I connect it? But I'm sure it'll come back. If it's important, it will come back to me. That's one thing I always say. I try not to give myself too much pressure if I forget something or from what I was going to say, because if it's important enough, it will come back to me. And if not, when it does come back to me, it will be completely useless. It'll be like this random day, like 2 months in the future, and I'll be walking back to myself. I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember what I was meant to be talking about. Oh, and I remember the connection. Oh, but this hindsight power is useless now. And this also leads me on to, with the book story, the book stories that find me, leads me on to H.G. Wells. Now, H.G. Wells, I hadn't thought about before. Well, I mean, I feel like I had heard of him before, and I potentially probably have heard of War of the Worlds before. It's a classic. But like it wasn't in the forefront of my head of authors I would go to, like, and I had a random conversation. I phoned one of my friends, I think it may have been a couple of weeks ago, maybe, and we haven't spoken since, or we hadn't spoken since somewhere near the start of the year, like March. So this is the first time in April, May, June, July. Yeah, it was in July when I spoke. We were still in July. So yeah, first time in 4 months that I've spoken to him. So we were having like a big catch-up call and stuff like that. And then I was talking about how I've been making these videos. And his brother was there. I think I may have been on loudspeaker at this point, and his brother may have overheard. And then he came to me and asked me about H.G. Wells, and I can't remember the question exactly that he asked me, but I feel like it was along the lines of, if an author has somewhat of a not so positive past because of the time and when he came from, I guess, and when he was writing, sometimes do you think it's right to discredit an author for that but still use their work? And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, well, he explained that there was, I don't know much about H.G. Wells and his writing other than War of the Worlds, and I need to do a full-on fall into the rabbit hole deep dive on him, and I will do sometime soon in the future. But he was talking about what was that film? Was it Bird Box? I think it was Bird Box he was talking about, and he said that they used one of H.G. Wells's books to come up with the concept for Bird Box. And like, I haven't checked any of this. Don't call me a gospel. I'm not like Wikipedia. I'm not Google. I'm just retelling this story. If this is wrong, I'm sorry. But anyway, I think it was Bird Box. And then he was talking about other works that he had written and how some people discredit him for those works, but then they still use it. And I was just like, well, then it can't be, it feels like, I don't know, one of those situations where you can't just, maybe you can discredit someone, but then also still use his work to inspire other works and then praise that works. It feels like a double standard. I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And like I said, I need to do some more research, but
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
like, you guys are here with me, right? You're watching the same video and you're hearing the words that I'm saying, right? I didn't say the robot. I didn't say the machine's name, right? I'm gonna have to watch this. I'm gonna have to watch this back in post. This is the 2 times in one video. That's crazy. Come on, man. I didn't say your name. But hey, what was I even saying? Right. H.G. Wells, War of the Worlds. How did I find this book? How did I find this story? So after my friend's brother told me about H.G. Wells and Bird Box and the connection, and we had this interesting conversation, it led me down another rabbit hole. I was like, all right, cool. So this makes me think I need to research into H.G. Wells first before I cast a stone on him without knowing more, kind of thing. So then I was at where did we go? I was maybe at a band meeting. A band meeting, and we were. Maybe it was a band meeting. I was there with the band, and after we had rehearsals, we maybe had a shot or something, or maybe it was I don't know. The band was there. We had shots after some good work we had done. And then usually there's a quiz shot. And with the quiz shot, what happens is, everyone goes around and says what category they're going to give, what category they want to have a question of. Does that make sense? They choose their category and that's what their question's going to be about. So everyone went around and chosen their categories. My category was, books. And my category ended up being voted for. So my question was the one thing I did research into H.G. Wells was who was the creator of modern science fiction. Interestingly, that's what this novel actually said. I was looking over to the side because that's what the novel actually says. On top of it, it says the novel that created modern science fiction. So that excites me even more. I love sci-fi. Anyway, and I was just like, what author created modern sci-fi? And they were guessing loads of people, and ended up someone guessed H.G. Wells. And that led on to someone in the group having a conversation. They were talking about War of the Worlds, and I was like, oh, nice. I overheard the conversation. It was based on H.G. Wells. Now I have a book to find. And then look, I found it. No searching, I did ask one of the story dealers. I was like, yo, do you guys have War of the Worlds? And yeah, they had it. And the ironic thing was, it was right in the sci-fi section on the bottom shelf, right there at the front. And when story dealer picked it out of the bookshelf, I was like, oh, what? I walked right past it. Could have found it myself. But I didn't see it. But hey. So the books enter... No. So the thing is that I'm not always finding books. Sometimes books seem to arrive after the story has started. So for example, the H.G. Wells, the story started when I had the conversation with my friend's brother. Then that started, I was like, oh, who's this author? I don't know about this. I don't know about any of this stuff. I need to find out more. Then, funnily enough, the rabbit hole started and stopped with, H.G. Wells being the creator of modern sci-fi. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And then I ended up finding out more from the quiz question, and that's where the story grew. And now I have the book, and now I have this story before I even got to it. And then there are recommendations like read this because it's 10 out of 10 is absolutely amazing. They're talking about it on Book Talk. You should definitely read it. And then there's recommendations when it comes with who recommended it to you, where you were when they recommended it to you, what conversations you were having when it arose. I think actually the other day I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and I have a lot of friends. These are different friends. I mean, I was saying out loud that I have a lot of friends because I've mentioned friends multiple times in this video. I was, what's the word? I was calling out myself. But anyway, we move on. I was telling my friend after we had this conversation, we were talking about like philosophy and like history and just like loads of other things. And I was just like, this really sounds like the book I'm currently reading. So I ended up recommending the book to my friend. And I said, look, I'm going to send you the front cover and the blurb so you can check out yourself. But from this conversation that we've had, I feel like you would really enjoy this book. Now, he will check out the front cover and the blurb himself. He'll see if he has any connection to it. But he also has this other recommendation that because of the conversation that we had on the phone, and maybe he, my opinion, he trusts my opinion, against his better judgment, even if it's something that may not vibe with him, he may still pick it up and end up reading it. Or it may end up on his to read later pile. And some books could mean something completely different to you depending on how it entered your life. Like that example. I didn't even realize that was the next note. So here's the question that I have for you at this point. Does the story of how we find does the story of how we find something change the way of how we experience it? The question will be up here, so forget my fumble. But yeah. And then it brings me on to the internet, because the internet just keeps doing this to me. They keep showing me stories. And I just can't help but being gripped to it or finding it and just wanting to know more, the curiosity of it. Like, for example, last week after I filmed my video and I posted it, I was on Instagram and I was scrolling as you do, and I came across the DuckDuckGo advert where they were advertising their anti-smart glasses, and they were calling it normal fucking sunglasses. And it just had me going. I was like, oh my gosh, who are DuckDuckGo? What is DuckDuckGo? I don't know who you are, what you do. I feel like I've heard of you, but I'm not sure why. Let me click on your page, because you're definitely getting my follow because of this joke. This is absolutely amazing. You guys are going to make a shitload of money for releasing sunglasses for, I think they were like $35 or something like that, versus all the other tech companies that are releasing smart glasses for thousands. There's a genius meme product, but actually at the same time it has that meta layer, and I was just like, yeah. So then when I got to the page of the DuckDuckGo, I was just like, oh my gosh, they're a privacy first search engine. Interesting. So what does that look like? So I ended up going to DuckDuckGo, and I was sat there on the page, and I was just like, oh, okay. So what question do I ask? Like, I don't know how I can test this out. And I was just like, all right, cool. The last question I asked myself, or I was exploring, was, what is a book? So I searched what is a book, and that's when I stumbled on this Oxford academic article where it was literally called What is a Book? And the author of this article, Brian Cummings, he literally started the article by saying, a book is difficult to define. And then I read the rest of it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so similar to what I was literally exploring. And it makes me think more that if they are academically, or there is a guy, Brian Cummings, academically putting this question out there on the Oxford academic articles pages, like, I have a reason to be wondering what a book is too. And maybe I wasn't so silly to be asking Google and asking DuckDuckGo this question. Maybe you guys have an answer. And oh yeah, I had this thought last week where, since I've started making this content talking about books and stuff, on my Facebook page, because when I post on Instagram, it goes to Facebook, but I'm not going to talk about the troubles I've been having with that right now. It's not worth this. It's not connected to this story. But anyway, on my Facebook business page, I've noticed recently that my feed has changed from being like mainly about music and poetry to just being about books. Like, it's just like books, 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 books. Oh, this library, this person's done this book haul, this person's done this. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. There was one post that I saw where it said, this guy had read 12 books in a month, or these are the 12 books I'd read this month. And I thought to myself, 12 books? You read 12 books in 30 or 31 days? That's absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy to me. I get through a book maybe every 2 months. But 12 books. And I even remember this thing from the article, because or the post rather, because this stood out to me, because it said, well, I read 12 books this month, but I would actually say I actually read 10 good books and 2 not so good books. Oh, all right, man, but you still read 12 books, however many pages, in 31. I just started thinking, what is this man, his life is just books. It's just absolutely, he just sits at home just reading all day, and then like what, he takes a break and then reads some more. Oh, what a life. What a life, man. And that sustains him. He can just read books and post about books, and he makes money. Oh my gosh, just the way how some people live is crazy. And I don't know if any of this is true. I'm just cultivating this story from my own brain, because 12 books in 30 days, there's nothing else you're doing. Like, let me know in the comments, like, is this something that you think you could, 12 books? I need to rethink this mega reader thing. Like, 12 books. If this human man is reading 12 books in 30 days, then a mega reader can't be reading 15 books in a day. A mega reader needs to have more arms. It can't just be 3 arms, like 6 arms. He may need to have like 10 arms so he can read 5 books at a time. Oh, okay, yeah, that works for the mega reader. And then maybe 12 books in 30 days. Oh, how many books? What is the most books that you have ever read in a month? I'm curious to know. Like, is this guy, like, because I've got this guy up on a pedestal here. He's read 12 books in 30 to 31 days. But like, maybe you guys have read more books. Like, this mega reader is going to need to have, like I said, 10 arms, and also the ability, when sat down, to read with its feet. So then that's like 2 more arms or hands that can hold a book. So that's like technically, what's that, 12 arms? Yeah, all right. No, sorry. 10 arms and then like 2 legs, but that they could also be used to read when they're sat down. So that's what, 12 books, right? Cool. That's 12 books at a time, and they read at 100x speed. Oh, okay, we're getting onto something. And they can read, what we got, 6 books. So they can maybe read five to 6 books at 100x speed, as we said. And I mean, that's good enough, right? So that's 10, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. That's 500 books, sorry. I said 100x, and I'm there like 5, 10, 15, 20. I would have been here for hours. Not hours, but I would have been here for a while. It's 500. So it's 500 to 600 books in a day. Yes, the mega reader has been formalized. Thank you, guy that read 12 books in 30 days, 30 months, 12 books in 30 months. And yeah, and there was even like this clip I caught on YouTube on Saturday. I think it was on Saturday. And it was like Fantano was reacting to this clip of an interview of Taylor Swift talking about like, she was talking about like Somber and how he writes intensely vulnerable lyrics. And then Fantano was piping up saying how can she say that? Oh no, no. The point that she made was that he was talking about the artist Somber talked about things in his music that makes women aware, or say, what's the words that she said? She said that Somber and his lyrics and the fact that he puts it in his songs makes women feel that they are also allowed to share those same elements or themes in their songs. And Fantana was saying that that's crazy for her to say that with all blah blah blah. And I was just like, hang on, where's the original source material? I need to see this whole interview. So I went back and watched the whole interview, and it was a really interesting interview. I recommend checking it out. I think it was with New York Times, and it was a really dope interview. Taylor's like talking about, or Taylor Swift, sorry, I don't know her personally. I can't be just saying like, I'm not a Swiftie or anything. I'm just saying I enjoyed the interview. I understand why the Swifties like Taylor Swift so much. That's all I can say when I came away from the interview. But she was talking about kind of storytelling through song. But the way how she was talking about it, I had never heard someone talk about storytelling through songs in that form. She was talking about how every part of the song is a layer that's telling the story. So you'll have like the first verse where you'll set everything up, the chorus where you'll give this theme that you're talking about, the second verse where you'll add to that layer, the bridge where you'll zoom out and you'll see things from a different view to then zoom back in maybe. And the way how she was talking about and describing it, I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, I know songs are stories that people tell, but I had never heard it. What's the word? I can't think of the word, but spoken about that way. And it just led me down a rabbit hole. So maybe the point is, a story doesn't necessarily arrive packaged as a story. Sometimes it begins as a comment, an advert. somebody holding something, a conversation you overhear, or maybe it's just one sentence, but it's never packaged as a story. It's just something that grabs you to that moment. And it makes me think about what comes first, like the book or the story, because this was something that I started thinking about. I started thinking about, the chicken and the egg story. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? What came first, the book or the story? Was it the container of the story, or the stories that were there before and then they found their container, or humans created a container to hold the stories? So when I was having my conversation with my friend earlier today, we talked about this. I posed this question to him, and he said, you should look into fables or folklore or Jamaican proverbs. And then he said, because there's stories that I know that have been passed down to me through my parents and grandparents, and everyone in my family know this story, but it's not written down anywhere. And I was like, that's fascinating, in the sense of this oral story that has been shared and passed through time, literally. It has a different meaning, a different feel. And I say different meaning in the sense of it's been passed down through generations, but the original story of how it was originally told may be different. The form of how it is told to the person may be different. It may have different words, may be more up to date. But what doesn't change throughout this story, that when it's been passed through time, is the fact of it having the same message. And that's the most interesting part about this proverb passed down through time, almost in the form of Chinese whispers, in the sense of every person it's told to, they remember it in a different way, or they remember it and return it out to others in their own words. And that's what you remember. Everyone knows this story, the main message. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. Then I started doing a little bit more research, because I was just like, I'm about to do this video tonight. I need to know more. So I looked into fables. I looked into proverbs. I found the history, and I found out that stories came first, historically. In fact, it was even more interesting to me that writing is only kind of a few thousand years old. I think that it said, where is it that I wrote this? Writing has only been around since the year 3200 BCE rather. And storytelling has existed since before that, in the form of orally, to pass down knowledge, beliefs, values, history, memory. Imagine that, remembering a whole family history in story form and passing it down through generations. The memory you would need for that is absolutely crazy. And to store it all in your head, just to, you remember that story, and you can just, on cue. It's crazy. So books might simply just be the technology that humans invented to preserve and distribute something that we were already doing. We were already telling stories. We just needed a container. We just needed a container. And I just love the fact that if I had never had that conversation, and like I said, it was not planned. I remember having a missed call as I was going on the underground. I was like, bro, I'll call you back when I'm above ground. And then that led me down the rabbit hole for me to figure out this whole story. Is to me, it's kind of interesting and crazy that he told me a story about he told me about stories being passed between people, and now I'm passing that story of the conversation to you. A story within a story. It's story inception. And that means it just goes beyond that. Maybe books are one place that stories live rather than where stories begin. The places that you seem to find stories kind of are everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. And I've come to this realization recently that maybe stories aren't finding me. Maybe I'm just unusually attuned to them. Maybe everyone, no, not even maybe, everyone is surrounded by stories. But not everyone notices them. Or I hate the word notice because it makes it feel like people are missing. And I don't think it is that people are missing stories because they're telling the stories and they're living their own. But I feel like it's more of a thing where, yeah, I'm just attuned to noticing. Noticing is not the right word. I'm attuned to them. Maybe my curiosity is just the mechanism to me becoming a detective for stories, a story detective. Oh, that could be a story detective. A story detective. Yeah. my my curiosity leads to me becoming a detective of stories. I'm more on the lookout for them. Not consciously, but when I notice a book, I'm like, oh, a book. What's this book for? Can I find out more about this book? Is this your book? So yeah, I'm still not sure whether stories generally find people or some people are just more attuned to noticing them. That's the only word I can find. Attuned to noticing them. Not that everyone else is missing them, because, like I said, you're surrounded by stories. People are telling stories around you, about you, to you. You're watching stories, you're playing stories, you're reading stories, you're performing in stories, you're dancing stories, you're singing stories, you're writing stories. Even if it's just in your diary, it's still a story about your day. But what I do know is that I've spent most of my life somehow ending up inside of a story. Like, all the crazy things that keep happening to me, they're all crazy stories. And now I think that maybe because I've been talking more about storytelling, that I'm paying more attention, and it seems that I seem to be just finding stories everywhere. Although, to be honest, that has genuinely, I always get that wrong, generally and genuinely, but this has genuinely been my life. And maybe that's all storytelling is. Noticing something, becoming curious, and then deciding if it's worth remembering. So my last question for you guys is, do stories find you? Like, have you ever discovered a book, a song, a place, a person completely by accident, and then realized later that it changed something? Or are stories everywhere and curiosity is just what makes us notice them? I don't know, but I'll leave it up to you. Oh, before I end the video, in my last video, when I was making my submission to Narrative Affairs, I was talking about this book by Keanu Reeves, and China Minville. And this book, The Book of Everywhere. Yeah, The Book of Everywhere. I recommend this book. Check it out. It will be one of the most random books that you read. I mean, yes, one of the most random books what I would say is there's a lot of things that happen in this book, and it seems like none of it is connected, and you will just be thrown in there, and they'll be like, they start talking about terms and stuff, and you'll be like, what are they even talking about? And then later on in the book, you're like, oh, okay, that's what they were talking about. All right, cool. And then there'll be there's like random chapters in there. You're like, well, hang on, what's this got to do with the other parts of this book that I've been reading? And you read it, you'll be like, what? What is this even story about? And then you'll get later on in the book, you're like, oh, I get why they were telling me this story about this. What was there a story about? This old lady. I think there was a story about old lady in there. I'm not going to say much more about that because if I say much more, I'll spoil the book for you. But just know, random stuff goes down. And also another thing about this book, it's kind of told cinematically, I would say. Like, or for me anyway, it feels like scene, like you're reading a movie in a way. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, it feels like every time you've read a chapter, it's like you've watched a scene or apart from a film. It's really well written by two authors, Keanu Reeves and China Mivelli. I recommend you reading it, finding out more. To be honest, what led me to this book is I saw Keanu Reeves and I was like, I love Keanu Reeves. He wrote a book with another person, The Book of Everywhere. Sign me up. And it's absolutely amazing. But yeah, I'll leave it there. If you have enjoyed this rabbit hole with me, exploring why stories find me, or maybe you found out why stories find you, I would love to know the answers to any of the questions I've asked in this video. And yeah, if you've enjoyed it, thank you for watching. If you didn't enjoy it, thank you for watching. And thank you for coming on this ride with me. I haven't really got much else to say left, but what I will say is thank you for watching again. I feel like this is like the third or fourth time I've said this now. Thank you for watching, and goodbye, and I will see you next time, next week, in the next video. I'm never sure how to end these things. Check out the books, and yeah. What was that? Or maybe I'm going to have to watch that back. Alexa, why do you keep piping up when I don't call you?
That's odd. I shouldn't be responding unless you've used the wake word. Might be worth checking if the microphone's picking up something that sounds like Alexa, or if there's a setting that needs adjusting.
Well, now you know, viewers, that's why it keeps piping up when you don't say the robot's name. Hey, we'll leave it there.